Media and Good Grief Worldwide proudly present Grief Diaries, hosted by Linda Sheldon Fell and Angie Cartwright. Grief Diaries candidly discusses grief uncensored as we explore our losses, journeys, hearts, and hope for grievers everywhere. To listen to archived episodes, visit www.griefdiaries.com. And now your hosts, Linda Sheldon Fell and Angie Cartwright.
Welcome to a show dedicated to the journey known as grief, where we sit, talk, and share losses, journeys, hearts, and hope. Before we've got a few announcements, but I do want to introduce tonight's guest. We have the beautiful and wonderful Carole Brody Fleet. Hello, Carole.
Hello, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Boy, I think
everybody should be able to
tonight, aren't I?
Everybody should be able to get introduced like that when they are working.
Oh my goodness! It's wow. As I already introduced Carole, we are chatting tonight with the founder of Widows Wear Stilettos. You got to love that title. And Carole, in 1998, her husband, a 28-year police veteran, was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, and he died 2 years later, December 2000, leaving Carole a widowed parent of an 11-year-old daughter and in emotional and financial ruins, and that's just an understatement. When you lose a spouse, my goodness, what a horrible, horrible journey. So armed with nothing but an idea, her sense of humor, which we can all appreciate, and a pad full of notes, Carole wrote her first book, Widows Wear Stilettos. And she went on to write her second book, Happily Even After, A Guide to Getting Through and Beyond the Grief of Widowhood. She's now a multi-award-winning author, executive producer of the best-selling CD, Widows Wear Stilettos, Now What? Or, correction, What Now? She's a popular contributor to the Huffington Post. If you haven't seen her blogs on Huffington Post, they're fantastic. And she has been featured on Good Morning America, the CBS Evening News, USA Today, the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, many magazines. And she is releasing her third book in September, When Bad Things Happen to Good Women, Advice, Encouragement, and Expert Suggestions for Getting You or Someone You Love Through the Toughest of Times. So, Carole, welcome to Grief Diaries Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
It's wonderful to have you join us. I have to say, though, when do you sleep?
Well, listening to all that
your
thinking,
resume is impressive.
Well, thank you. I've been very blessed and fortunate. But I was thinking, gosh, you know what? Somewhere in there, I'm gonna put a vacation. Carole will be announcing her vacation later on in 2015.
You know, that is kind of a sad moment when you have to schedule your own vacation.
I know,
in the year.
It's all. I'm so lucky.
Yeah, and it's just a beautiful testament that what you do is working to comfort widows around the world, and what an honorable thing to be doing. And not only that, but it has to be healing for you as well.
Well, it's an honor to be doing it. It's an honor when anybody lets you into their healing journey. Because a lot of people are out there with opinions, and not all of them are helpful. And, widows have choices, and the bereaved have choices. And to be allowed to participate in a small way in somebody's healing journey, to be able to provide guidance or a resource or even a smile along the way.
Right, absolutely.
It's a genuine honor to be able to do that.
Well, take us back. It's been this December. It'll be 15 years for you.
That's right.
Take us back to that time and what your pivotal moment was when you decided that you wanted to be a voice for grievers everywhere.
Well, it obviously didn't come right away because
right.
I one of my philosophies is you can't lead where you haven't been. And before I was in a position to write for and advise and be knowledgeable in the many areas, it's not just about grief recovery, as you know. There's so many factors. I had to do all that myself. I had to do the emotional transitioning. I had to do financial and legal transitioning. I had to find out what the dating world was like. That's a whole other show. I had to.
Yeah, indeed, I'm sure.
It is. I had to facilitate my daughter's healing, which is a separate and distinct healing journey. And all these things are going on simultaneously while you're continuing, your day-to-day, your work routine, child's activities, and so forth. So it was a number of years. It was about 5 years before I started writing the first book, because it took that long for me to get to where I felt I was in a position that I might be able to help somebody else.
Right, and that's well said. Many people dive right in, and you really need to give yourself time to heal. That's very, very important. And
exactly.
You can't help others until you help yourself first.
That's right.
And so what inspired you then, 5 years later, to begin writing for the widowed?
Well, because it occurred to me there might be other people looking for the same kind of support that I've been looking for years earlier. You have to remember, I was widowed in 2000. And in terms of technology, that was a lifetime ago. The Internet was a baby. It was brand new. You went on the Internet, you basically had your choice of chat rooms and porn. That was it. And I really didn't need either one of those things at that time. Don't need them now, but we didn't have we did not have.
Let's clarify that.
Right. But there wasn't the resources then that there is now. And you also have to remember, I was widowed prior to 9/11 and prior to 2 United States-involved wars and prior to the tsunami and prior to Katrina. So by 2005, the widow community had grown tremendously. And at that point in time, it was still being underserved and completely overlooked. And the problem that I had, Linda, when I went looking for support is I couldn't find the support that spoke to me. I have a number of grief books, and they're excellent. They really are. But nobody was talking about the tough stuff. I know I love affirmations and I love all that stuff, but how do I get my benefits from the government? And how do I help my child when I can't even help myself? And what about the goofy things that people are saying to me? Because they're pretty goofy things that I'm being told. And what about things like dating and love? And is that even in my radar anymore? None of this was being talked about. And I've always been of the opinion, if you can't find it, create it. And I just started writing down, old school, on a legal pad, all the things I'd been looking for and couldn't find. Because I figured if I'd been looking for those things, other widows were probably looking for those things too. And I wound up with a table of contents.
Okay, a whole table of sure. But you think back in nearly 15 years ago. Again, like you said, with technology in its infancy stage, when you think of widow, you think of people who are in their 80s, and it's almost a normal part of life being a widow at that late in your life, right? And so when you are younger, people don't know what to do with you.
They don't, and they still don't.
Right. And so they taking the bull by the horns, because you're right. If you are experiencing this, so are other people. And so good for you for meeting it head on. You saw a need.
Well,
and
actually the title, Widows Wear Stilettos, came really as a result of that very image that you just presented, because it's true. I never thought about the word widow until the moment they were preparing the American flag to present to me, because they present that to the widow. And the whole 2 years and 3 months prior to that, we were consumed with survival. You don't think about after that. And that's when it occurred to me that I'm a widow, and the next thought that came into my head was, I can't be a widow, I wear 5-inch heels. Widows don't wear 5-inch heels.
Right.
Widows they don't listen to heavy metal music. They don't drink lemon drop martinis. We all have that image of widowhood that you just described. And now one of the things that I'm committed to is breaking that stereotype that widowhood has all kinds of faces and all kinds of ages and all kinds of circumstances. And and technicalities, and widowhood doesn't look like what everyone expects it to look like.
Well, you are a beautiful face of representing widows, but they come in all shapes and forms. And, I mean, truly, you know, widowhood can happen to anyone at any age. But I'm curious, when you found your voice representing the younger generations of widows everywhere, did people know what to do with you?
No, and they still don't. You know, I was when I first became widowed, I assumed that everybody was going to jump on my train and they were going to be supportive and think, wow, you know, you stayed till the end, until death do us part, and you know this is such a tragedy, but you know, and be sympathetic. And I did receive a great deal of that. And then there's the other side, where you tell somebody that you're widowed and they physically back away from you. Like they're going to catch a severe case of death if they're if they're in your space. You get people saying, "Well, you don't look like a widow." What does a widow look like? Because it wasn't a career choice.
Right.
So that's where I figured out, wow, there's some educating that needs to be done in this world. You know, people need to know that widows didn't necessarily get to be married for decades and have dozens of grandchildren and go on cruises. And, you know, their good old days, to me, when the older generations would talk about the good old days, it was post-war, post-depression. Well, now the good old days are the 70s. To me.
I remember the 70s.
Right. So, you know, the widowhood is not what people have it in their heads that it is, and we have to, one of the problems, Linda, and you know this, we are by and large a death-denying society. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about loss. Because if we don't talk about it, it won't happen. Except it does. And not talking about it just keeps us in a place where we're not prepared. That's why people don't have life insurance. That's why people don't have wills. That's why people pass away and their families are going on scavenger hunts for important papers and so forth.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Because we're not talking about it.
And you know, Carole, I'm glad that you're bringing that up, because that is a critical side of widowhood that people don't often think about. And I'm working with a national organization that is getting ready to launch a campaign called Have the Talk. And more on that will be coming out over the coming weeks. But what's really important about that is that you think, I don't want to have the talk. The talk, that's someone else's life. That's not my life. And the talk is to prepare what if. And it can save you a lot of anguish when you're in the middle of deep, dark anguish. And so Good for you for bringing that up, because it's very, very important. And, go ahead.
And throwing it back at you, when you say what if, you know, it's not if, it's when. We don't know when.
Right, true.
We know it's going to happen. It's not a, you know, if this happens. It's going to happen. And if you love the people that are around you, you will make their lives as easy as possible when that sad time comes that you're no longer here. Nobody likes to talk about not being here anymore. It's not fun. But it's necessary. It's responsible. It is your way of saying to the people that you love, I love you so much that when the time comes, all you've got to do is pick up a phone. So they can concentrate on the emotional aspects of grief, not on all the other nonsense that comes along with grief, and then sadly also the family discourse that can also happen as a result of not being prepared. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I wish so much I could tell you that it's an exception when families fall apart or argue or break down. I wish I could tell you that was an exception. Sadly, after 10 years and tens of thousands of letters, it's more often than not what happens. But it also comes down a lot of times to a lack of preparedness.
Right. Well, grievers are raw. And so that lack of preparedness is one more element to throw on top. And we all know that when we're grieving and we're raw, we're going to handle things a whole lot different than if we had been prepared prior to. So, Carole,
right.
I want to stop you there real quick. We've got a caller on the line. You want to take a phone call?
Of course.
Okay. Hang on here, and we'll get him on. The last four digits of the phone number, 8519. Hi there. You're on the air with Grief Diaries Radio. What's your name?
Hi, my name's Karen. I actually called in because I couldn't actually click the button like I usually do on my phone just to hear the show, so I called in to listen. I never punched in to talk to people, but I will tell you, I just heard the last part of it because I was late getting on. I'm a recent widow. Well, it'll be a year this month, and I'm only 57, and I got married for 4 years, and my husband was sick for 3 with cancer, so...
Oh,
like
I'm so sorry.
What I heard. I'm not. Yeah, and it's been horrible. And I don't know. I was just listening to what she was saying. I just got the last part of it. But yeah, I thought I'd be. I got married late in life. I got married at 52, and I was a widow at 56. So I got 4 years of marriage total, but 3 years my husband was sick, and 1 year. And that was, we lived long distance, so we never even lived together. So it was a desperate period. So, yeah, we didn't get – it's hard either way, though. It's hard if it's 40 years or 4 years. But I was just listening because, you know, people, they don't know what to do. And it's just, it's difficult.
And if you – right, and if you're, you know, if you've been married 4 years or 40, it doesn't make you any less of a widow. You're still a widow.
Correct.
You still lost your spouse.
And unfortunately, that's a problem. When you – I found that widows who don't have the privilege of being married for many years. I was married for a shorter period of time as well to my late husband. And people will actually discount your widowhood. They will say, well, you know, I was married for 20 years, and, well, Karen, you were married for 4, so I'm in so much more pain than you. Or you weren't married long enough to count as a widow. Well, I missed the part in the wedding vows that said you have to be married this amount of time before it kicks in. This is not a warranty on a refrigerator. This is a marriage. And when you commit your life to someone else for the rest of your life and you lose that person, you're widowed. Period. Period.
Yeah. Yep, and it's not fun, but, you know, it is what it is. And anyway, it's, yeah, I just called in to listen because I couldn't get it on my phone, but
not a problem. I'm happy to put you back on this so you can continue to listen to the show on your phone. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, just any suggestions or any help would be helpful. I'm just, you know, some days are better than others, and some days are good and some days aren't, and it's just the way it is. It'll be a year this month, and I think a lot of my family and friends think, oh, my God, why is it taking so long kind of thing, and you know,
that's a wonderful thing to talk about. That's a great thing to talk about. Why is it taking so long? That's a huge issue, Linda. Not just with spousal loss, but with loss in general, is that people all have this timeline, and they're going to decide for you how long it should take for you to feel better or get over it or whatever useless cliche they want to put in. What people don't understand is that my timeline is not Linda's timeline, and Linda's timeline is not Karen's timeline, and Karen's timeline is not Carole's timeline. Everyone's timeline is different. That's the first most important thing. The second thing to understand is most of the first few months, year, you're in a fog. And that's an okay place to be. The body is defending the heart. It's cushioning the blow that you sustained. So the fog is okay. But when a fog begins to lift, it's kind of like when anesthesia wears off after you've had dental work. And it hurts. So sometimes the second year and the third year can be even tougher in some respects. Because now the fog is starting to lift, people have gone on with their lives, and now you're really dealing with the now. So when people assume this attitude, they're looking at their watch and tapping their toe and looking at you and saying, well, Linda, it's been a year. Why aren't you over it?
Right.
Because I'm operating on my timeline, and I am doing this in my way and in my time. And too many people don't get into the driver's seat of their own healing journey, and that's a problem.
Absolutely. And, Carole, my response for those people when they, apply a timeline, timelines really don't apply at all in the world of grief. I call it the grief dance. Some days we go backwards, some days we go to the side, some days we go to the other side, and some days we go forward. It's a dance.
It's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, and I actually came up with, I call it the grief literacy test. And the reason why I'm calling it the grief literacy test is because literacy, being illiterate, means that you are ignorant or have lack of knowledge in a subject. So being grief illiterate is rampant in our society. And if someone wants to know how grief literate they are, they can go to my website, lindafell.com. That's Linda with a Y, fell.com. You can also find it on griefdiaries.com. Click on blog, and one of the links there is the grief literacy test. And it's a quick, easy 10-question test where you can see how you stack up in the world of grief and your understanding. And it's a multiple choice. Anyone can take it, and it will probably end up being my most popular blog ever. And it kind of came on the heels of the Super Bowl ad from Nationwide Insurance, of which I'm sure you're both quite familiar with. Nationwide Insurance is still handling the fallout from that and the insensitivity of their ad that was meant to, talk about preventing childhood accidents in the home, but their use of portraying a dead child was very insensitive to grievers, not just those who've lost a child, but to grievers who have lost a loved one of any sort. And so that grief literacy test kind of was born out of that fiasco. And so when people talk about that...
Wouldn't you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but wouldn't you love to meet the person sitting on Madison Avenue saying, this is a great idea?
Well, here was my thought about it, Carole. And Karen, I know you're still with us, and Carole, I'm sure has some wisdom tips for you here in a minute. But my personal thought was, in today's technology and with the multi-million dollars that they apply to marketing campaigns, the fact that not one person on that marketing team said, you know what, this doesn't feel right, that is what I found absolutely mind-blowing.
Amazing
and
to me.
There's millions of grievers everywhere, okay? And so according to the National Mental Health Association, from the 2002 census, nearly 800,000 women lose their husbands each year. Okay, so that's widows alone. So there's many other griefs and losses across. It's a very broad spectrum, right? And so they've got this marketing team with this multi-million-dollar marketing campaign, and not one person in that room said, this is kind of insensitive. I don't get that. That just does not happen. And
I know.
But what it did do, because I've been and I shared this last week on Grief Diaries Radio, but I've been working with Jasmine Green, the Vice President and the Chief Customer Advocate there at Nationwide Insurance, and they have had a severe fallout. And that's unfortunate. However, their goal was to open the dialogue about preventing childhood accidents in the home. And I appreciate that very much. If it saves one life. As do
I, but there really has to be a better way.
Right, exactly, Carole. And it takes voices like yourself to stand up and say, all the myths that we've had, that we were raised with about being a widow or grief, those things really are myths, and they need to be laid to rest.
That's right.
And so I appreciate everything that you do, because you are making a difference for the future of widows, the future of grievers. And that's incredible.
Well,
That's
thank
incredible.
you, and you're doing the same thing and the same work, and it's not always easy work, but it is always worth it work.
It's honorable. That's for
yeah.
sure. That's honorable.
Absolutely.
So with regards to Karen's question, as a widow, what are some tips that she might take away with? I'm sure that our many listeners would like to know some of these tips as well. Any that come readily to mind?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, let's go back to the other people and their expectations. We have to quit living according to other people's expectations, which really can be applied to all areas of our life. But we're going to talk about grief right now. Their timeline is not yours. They are not the widow. There's only one widow in this paradigm, and that is you. So you are going to be reacting to this loss differently than everybody else around you. And you have to own and honor your timeline. It's your healing journey. It belongs to you. As long as you're not coping in a destructive manner, and by destructive, I mean things like alcohol, drugs that are not supervised by a doctor, compulsive behavior, which is compulsive shopping, compulsive gambling, compulsive sexual behavior that could potentially hurt you, cutting, self-mutilation, anything that can harm you, that is not good coping mechanism, okay? That's what we don't want. Short of destructive coping, anything that you choose to do to proceed on your healing journey that is speaking to you, that is moving you forward, that is bringing you comfort or peace or something to think about, it's okay to do. And that's such an important takeaway. Make the choice to heal. That's another huge issue. A lot of people don't choose to heal. That sounds stupid, but let's explore. I had a widow years ago tell me, how awful it was, and it is. I know that. So the first thing I said is, what have you done? Have you gone to a support group? Well, no, because I can't find one. Okay. Have you gotten any books? What books have you read? None. All right. Have you talked to anybody, a mental health expert, your doctor, a cleric? No. She hadn't done anything. She was sitting around waiting to feel better. It doesn't happen that way. You have to make a conscious choice to begin your healing process. You have to choose it. And then you have to get proactive about it. You have to surround yourself with the support, the resources, and the community, all of which is going to propel you forward. But that has to begin with you. You cannot sit and wait to feel better. Beautiful, beautiful. Karen, does that fit for you?
Yeah, I'm not doing anything self-destructive. I'm involved in some grief stuff, like grief groups, like this thing online and some other things. Good. But it's just, it's a hard thing. I mean, but I'm doing all that stuff, like grief groups and different things. So that stuff's helping. In fact, I went to a grief class tonight, believe it or not. So that stuff's actually helping. And yeah. So I'm doing all the good things, all the right things.
Are you in any of the closed groups on social media for widows?
I don't think I am from one in my home state, but not with you guys. No, because I didn't know how to find them. But I can look online and I can look around.
Well, I can share one with you right now, and then I'm sure Carole's got some as well. But if you go on Facebook, are you on Facebook?
I am.
Okay. If you go on Facebook and you search for Grief the Unspoken,
yep.
It is a site for grievers. It's got roughly 450,000 members. From there are 24 closed groups, each one specific to different losses. And so for widows, there's a closed group. For people who have lost a child, there's a closed group. For people who've lost a mother or a father or a sibling or a gay and lesbian partner, there's one for everything. And in there, you're going to find people that share the same kind of loss, and it's a very safe place to share your feelings without others, like your family and friends who are on Facebook. They can't see what you're posting because it's a closed group. You have to join it in order to post in there. But it's a great source of comfort because you are among people who speak your language of the heart. And there's comfort in that. It doesn't take away the pain, but there's comfort in the knowledge that you're not on that journey all alone. And there's others who speak your same language. And so that's one place to go. Carole's got a wonderful, wonderful Facebook group. And you don't have to wear stilettos to belong to it.
No, you do not.
Ballet flats are welcome.
That's absolutely true. The only one that has that dress requirement, widow's dress, is me. I did not think that through 10 years ago. So, no, that's not required. Also, though, we do have a closed group called WWS Girls. It is a closed group. It is for women only. It is an ancillary page of Widows Wear Stilettos because that group is public. It is open. But WWS Girls is closed, and all you have to do is request to join it, and our administrator will happily add you. And it's just another avenue to really just let your feelings out, however you're feeling, and you are going to be surrounded by love and support and a whole bunch of people who are going through the exact same thing. And I think that that's really important, is to find other people who understand the journey because they're on the journey.
Right. And so we can't emphasize that enough with you, Karen. It's simply because we have seen it benefit millions of people, and it may not. Social media is not the answer for everybody, but if you're not in there, you won't know if you don't try it. And that's really important. And you can also go to Carole's her regular website, widowswearstilettos.com, is also a great source to check out. And the beauty of that, many people don't want to go to like the grief group in their local community or this, that, or the other for different reasons. And so the beauty of social media and technology is that you don't have to put your shoes on or even get dressed. You can, tap right into these groups and others like yourself and talk with them and share your feelings and your emotions without even taking off your pajamas. And that's really cool.
That's always a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. So it is because I didn't have a pen and paper. I didn't realize, like I said, I called in to listen, but it's SK. What was it again? I just want to make sure I have it right. Hello?
For Carole's site? Can you hear me? For Carole, your closed website or Facebook page is it WWS?
WWS as in stiletto, girls.
Okay.
And all you have to do is send a request, and the administrator will add you.
Okay. All right, I will look at all of them, and I really appreciate it. Like I said, I called in to listen. I'd like to be put back on hold so I could listen, but
Absolutely.
I really appreciate this very much. Thank you all.
Oh,
of course.
You're more than welcome, and sending you big hugs, Karen, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, bless her sweet soul. So, Carole, I have a curious question for you. And, I'm not a widow. My journey's a little different. So, of course, I needed to, to understand your journey a little bit more. And how do you do that? You go to Google, to get stats and such, and, to admire the shoes that you wear. And but, one of the things that so here's one of the things that is different about your journey from my journey is that when you become a widow, especially a young widow, how did that impact your friendships? In particular, I am referencing the women. Did they suddenly see you as a threat to their own marriage?
Yes. It makes me sad and ill at how often that happens, because the widow is really left absolutely just stunned. What did I do? I actually had that happen, and I think that this story is in the second book. We were friends with another couple. They were both wonderful, and they're both highly educated people. And the woman was actually, she's a doctor. And they were wonderful and supportive through Mike's illness. They were there and absolutely fantastic until Mike drew his last breath. And all of a sudden, her attitude toward me changed 180 degrees. She was cold. She was distant. I remember one day we were, it wasn't long after Mike's death, Kendall, my daughter, who was then 11 years old, went, scampering up for a hug, and she turned her back. And I was absolutely puzzled. And I went to another mutual friend, a girlfriend, and I said, "What's up?" And she says, "Don't you know?" I said, "Clearly I don't. I've been busy." And she said she thinks you're going to go after her husband now that Mike's gone.
Wow.
And I was
How do you
stunned.
even respond to that?
Well,
I mean, and especially she's a doctor. She has a better understanding of grief than most.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And yet that fear overtook her common sense.
That's right. And the presumption, the arrogance, if you will, that just because you want your husband, that every other female on the planet wants him, guess what? I'm good. I really don't have to do that. Okay? And again, it's one of those things where, as so many other aspects of widowhood, you feel alone. You feel like I'm the only one that's having to deal with this. And then you find out that this has happened to a lot of women, and friendships have gone by the wayside because there is an assumption that widows are skulking at schoolyards with chocolate bars and in bushes and waiting to pounce on these unsuspecting husbands walking down the block. And it just doesn't work that way. We don't need to play the widow card to get attention. And I don't know of many widows who go out on an immediate manhunt 30 minutes after the funeral is over. So we really need to get that out of our heads, that just because somebody's widowed, that we are now casting our eye on your husband to replace what has been lost.
Well, and you wrote a Huffington Post blog called "She's a Man-Eater: The Non-Existent Threat That Widows Pose" from May of last year. And,
exactly.
What a great, first off, kudos to you for bringing that out in the open, because that has to be one of the most uncomfortable aspects of being especially a younger widow. But I'm sure it happens even in the older widows as well, is that suddenly you're single and you're a threat to the marriages of your friends around you. And in reality, you're in a fog of pain, and you need
your husband is
to be surrounded by love.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you not only did you lose your husband, but then you lost your friend.
That's
and
right.
You lost your friend because she feared for her own marriage suddenly because you were single.
And if you would like
what
to
a strange.
Well, and here's the kind of you can't help but kind of smile postscript to that particular story, which was the basis for the Man-Eater article that you're referring to. The kind of humorous postscript is that couple is divorced now.
Well,
exactly.
Oh,
I know you don't want to laugh, but
there are no words. What do you But such an interesting element to the grief journey of a widow is suddenly that threat that you're out there prowling for the next husband because yours clearly didn't mean enough for you to wear the 1 year of black, which we all know is a myth anyway, because the grief lives with you forever. So that brings me to a really interesting statistic that I came across, though, is that according to the AARP in 1999, and I'm sorry, these were just the most recent stats. Now, why they are so outdated, I don't know. But at that time, there were 8.4 million widows and 1.9 million widowers.
And yeah, those stats are dreadfully out of date. And of course now it's the more time that goes on, the harder it is to keep track, because the term widow is being redefined before our very eyes.
Okay, well, so correct me. When I saw the statistic, what really jumped out at me was the off balance of it, where the women outnumbered the men, and it went on to say that men often find themselves remarried, or at least in an intimate relationship within 25 months of losing a spouse, whereas a woman it takes a lot longer. And
that is true.
So, okay, and so is that still applied today? Is that still completely, for every one male widow, there's 4 female widows? Is that still the same scale, the same ratio?
That part, the ratio, I cannot speak to intelligently, so I don't want to try. I can't say that for certain. We know that there is anywhere between 800,000 and 1 million new widowed per year. We know that at any given time there is between 15 and 20 million widowed living in the United States. But again, we are not counting the LGBT community, which is now becoming a factor in that statistic. We are not including a lot of times when they do these statistics with widows, they only include households that have children. What about a widowed person who never had children, or whose children is over the age of 18? It's such a gray area. But I do know that by and large, men do tend to re-involve, whether it's marriage or living together or whatever. They do re-involve sooner than women. Now, that when I cite that statistic, a lot of men get offended. They get ruffled because it sounds like you are impugning the memory of their late beloved. We're not. We are just simply citing a statistic. It doesn't mean that you ran out 30 minutes after the funeral to find somebody. But what we're saying is when we look at the numbers, mostly men re-involve quicker than women. And the reason that there's more widows than widowers is because statistics continue to bear that women live longer than men. And that is all statistical. So just because we're saying, men get involved sooner, it doesn't mean, oh, you're terrible, oh, you're awful. It's just what the statistics are showing us. Right.
But I found it very interesting. And one of the statistics that I came across was the National Institute of Health, and they did cite that 2 years after a spouse's death, 61% of men and 19% of women were either remarried or romantically involved.
Right, so, and that's a disparity.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah. I want to ask you, when you began to entertain the idea of, perhaps dating or, enjoying the company of another male at some point in the journey, how did you handle the guilt?
I didn't have guilt, and the reason the reason I did not have guilt is because I determined completely by trial and error that there are actually 10 ways to determine your dating readiness. And we're not going to go through all 10 because we don't have that kind of time. But I did things that would help me determine that I was ready to date again.
Okay.
And
fantastic.
So I never went through, I'm cheating on him. I'm so guilty. What am I doing? This is dishonoring his memory. This is casting aspersions on the life that we led. Part of what helped that was Mike himself. A couple of months before he died, because we all knew that the end was near, he told me that I had to find love again. And because it was such a difficult moment, we dealt with these issues with humor, because that's what we did. That's how we got through. And when he said you have to find love again, I asked him if I could take some time off. And he laughed. But he was so worried about it. he was so worried about it, he actually went to my mother and said, you have to make sure that she doesn't jump into the grave with me. And knowing that he wanted that so much for me, I started dating again. It was just shy of 2 years after Mike passed away, because I had other things to do in that time. I had to get physically and emotionally healthy. I had to help our daughter to do the same. 4 months after I lost 4 months after I lost Mike, I lost my father. So there was that tremendous loss to deal with simultaneously.
Wow.
And that is not the time to start dating. You can't invite somebody into your dynamic until you know what your dynamic is. And we all know that after a life-altering, core-shaking loss, we're not the same person that we were before. And I needed to get to know who I was as a widow, as a woman, as a widowed parent. I needed to get to know Carole. And only then was I ready to invite someone into my new dynamic that had been presented to me. So I love when I present a dating workshop, and I love that workshop because guilt is such a hot-button issue in the bereaved community, not just widows, but the bereaved community.
Right.
And I love helping people overcome guilt and the different ways that we can do that. It's so important.
Very, very important. Thank you for validating that. Is there a spot on your website where people can go and get more information about the workshop or the 10 tips to know whether you're ready to date again? Where might they find that information?
Well, the 10 tips are in the books. They're not on the website. The workshops that I do, are part of. I participate in Camp Widow, which is sponsored by the Soaring Spirits Lost Foundation. The information for that is at our website at widowswearstilettos.com. But it's just one of the many workshops. I appear all over the country, but that is one of the most popular ones. Is dating, and of course the guilt/cheating subject always comes up. And what I have to remind everybody is, regardless of your faith, what words were used, whether you got married at a courthouse or in a cathedral, the sentiment is the same: till death do us part. You upheld your end of the deal. You upheld your vows, and so did your beloved. How can you be cheating? That's number one. So while we absorb that, let's think about this. Our heart has an infinite capacity to love. If it didn't, we'd all have one child, and that's it. Actually, I just did have one child, but that's not the point. The point is that if our heart didn't, if our heart did not expand, well, I couldn't possibly have another child because I love this child so much. How could I love another child as much as I love this one? If you choose it, and if you allow it, your heart can expand to embrace new love while you're bringing the love from your previous life with you. It's not an either-or situation. It's both and. Mike was a great man, and we had a beautiful marriage and a 20-year friendship prior to that. And that said, I have a wonderful new life. I remarried in 2009 to a fantastic man, and who has embraced the mission that I'm on and helped me take it to where it is. And my heart has expanded to embrace that love and the daughter that he brought into our now beautiful blended family. My heart has expanded for all of that.
Love comes in, and love comes in many, many forms.
Of course it does.
It does not. It doesn't. And that's an interesting point. Is that for people, and that's a journey that I can speak on, is losing a child. Is that people wonder, how can I ever find happiness again? Your heart has the capacity to hold joy at the very same time it holds sadness and sorrow. And that's the beauty of the heart. Just like you said, it has the capacity to expand. It's not one size and then remains that size. It is possible to hold more love in there, and to hold love at the same time as it holds sorrow. It does have that capacity, and it's okay to give yourself permission.
That's right. Yeah. And new love does not mean you're throwing the other love away. You know, it doesn't work that way. You just embrace what's coming to you. I'm also very quick to say, because I run across a lot of people who say, well, Carole, you know, you can have a complete life and be alone, and that's absolutely true. And if you are choosing that, I support. Well, because people, again, you get the defensive. I am teaching. We're talking about dating and love because people are talking about it in this community. But if you choose not settle for or feel guilty, but if you choose to remain on your own for whatever reason, that is absolutely fantastic, and I support it wholeheartedly.
Of course.
That's important.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, because it's, you know, every person's journey is different. And if you find happiness in being alone, by all means do whatever makes you happy. But don't stay alone for the wrong reasons.
That's right.
If you're alone for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's right.
If you're alone for the right reasons, that's okay.
I'm settling because I'm afraid of losing again, that's the fear that I live with every day. I check my husband's breathing at night. And I own it because he caught me doing it, and it was very embarrassing. I checked his breathing. I am absolutely scared to lose again. Or I'm going to stay alone because there's too many crackpots in the dating world. Guess what? They were there 40 years ago too. Get over it. Go date.
Right.
Or I'm going to stay alone. Yeah, I'm going to stay alone because I feel too guilty. Well, we've talked about that, and we talk about it a lot more in the books and on the website and so forth, because guilt is such a huge issue. If these are the reasons that you are alone, that's settling, and that's not okay. But if you're choosing to be on your own, if it's a conscious choice and you are embracing it and loving it and your life is full and it's of your design, I think that's fantastic. And I'm absolutely 100% behind that.
Very powerful. I'm mesmerized by all the things that you're saying, because you are such a beautiful voice for all of those that are afraid to take that first step, to give themselves permission to begin living again. They don't know. We have such outdated myths surrounding the different grief journeys, including widowhood.
We do.
And so, you know, kudos to you. I applaud you for standing up and saying, you know what, ladies, it is okay for us to be widows and find joy in life again.
I appreciate that.
Well, you know, it's, and I know we're running out of time here, and we have to have you back on, because there's a whole lot more we've got to talk about.
Oh, I know. We could just do the dating show.
Just a dating show. Actually, we need to do that. Because that's very, very important. And
it is.
You know, but and especially it's so important to have a voice representing grievers of all ages, and you're doing that very beautifully, and I admire your work. You know, Women's Wear Stilettos. You've also got your second book, Happily Even After, A Guide to Getting Through and Beyond the Grief Widowhood. And now you've got your third book coming out. Do you have a name for it? Oh, When Bad Things Happen to Good Women.
The third book is which you introduced earlier, is When Bad Things Happen to Good Women. And actually that is, I'm still driving in my grief recovery lane, but the lane got wider. Of course I talk about widowhood because that's the community I come from. But we are talking now in that book about all kinds of things that happen to women, all kinds of challenges, in addition to all kinds of loss. In all the loss perspectives, we talk about loss of a job, loss of a business, loss of a home due to financial challenge or a natural disaster, loss of financial security. We talk about things like betrayal, domestic violence, living with substance abuse. And there are over 40 women contributed their stories to this book to help others in the same situation. We talk about suicide survivors. There's this book is so comprehensive, and it is so beautiful in terms of the help that it's going to provide to women in need and, in some cases, women in danger.
That's very, very powerful, and that is going to be absolutely fantastic. I really look forward to when that book is released. Do let us know so we can help spread the word, because that's a powerful, powerful. When you start sharing women's stories, all under in one book, magical things happen.
Exactly,
and because it's not just one voice, it is a multitude. And when you take two people and add them together, you don't get two. You get, it's just an infinite number of good things happen. So good for you. Congratulations on that. And I look forward to reading that. I think it's fantastic. So to contact Carole, go to her website, www.widowswearstilettos. For widowed support and grief recovery. She also has, for aspiring and even already published authors, she has a website. This is really cool because I'm a writer. www.therightdifference.com, and that's the right, WRITE, difference.com. And you can also email her at widowswstilettos@AOL.com. Follow her on Twitter at Widows Stilettos, and on Facebook, Widows Wear Stilettos. Carole, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I apologize for the technical difficulty we had in the beginning of the show.
Oh, that's okay, Linda. It's live radio.
It is, and it's just how it goes. And but thanks for joining us and sharing with us the different elements of the widow journey. And I do look forward to having you back on, because we have a lot more topics that we can talk about here with regards to the widow journey, but more importantly, the different aspects of it that you're willing to be a voice for that needs to happen. So thank you so much. And you have a wonderful night, and I look forward to chatting with you soon. And for all our listeners out there, join us again next week, right here on Grief Diaries. Have a wonderful night, everyone.
The Grief Diaries radio show is brought to you by Alley Blue Media and Good Grief Worldwide, an official partner of National Grief Awareness Day, working to bring grief out of the darkness into the light. For more information about Grief Diaries or to listen to archived episodes, please visit www.griefdiaries.com.